Today, we're talking about you, gamer boy. That's right. You, the approximately 13 to 17-year-old boy who clicked on this video. It's okay. Have a seat. We're here to be friends. We're not gonna hurt you. But you need to stop being a fucking piece of shit incel, okay, kid? Because that's right, incels have become a real problem for female teachers in the UK. Here we have an article from Sky News. Teachers debate how to tackle incel culture in schools after a female staff reports of misogyny at work.
One teacher reported a male pupil asking them if it was their time of month in lessons, while another asked them if they had been raped. The second statement is pretty severe.
This reminds me of those headlines that are like, don't teach girls how to not be raped, teach boys not to rape. Because, like, what the hell? Clearly, parents in the UK are doing a shit job of taking care of their kids and their boys and teaching them about how to interact with members of the opposite sex. Probably a global issue. Look at this. You see these kids? Probably all incels. Kathy Downs, a secondary school teacher from Leeds, proposed a motion at NASU Union's annual conference in Birmingham after a survey of members revealed 72% had been the victim of misogyny at their school. Incel, an abbreviation for involuntarily celibate. I mean, I don't need to explain that to you, listener. You know what that word means. Refers to an online subculture involving men who feel unable to find sex or have love and express extreme resentment towards women. So basically, like most gamers. The movement was linked to the murder of 5 people by gunman Jake Davidson in Plymouth last month. So, you know what's crazy? If all these incels are like murdering people en masse and stuff, right? My question is, what do we do to stop that? Like, I don't even know what obviously that's what they're trying to figure out as well. Here in America, like, they don't even want you to discuss gender or anything like that in schools anymore.
I think the problem is that we don't talk about sex education in schools. We don't talk about gender in schools. We don't like to talk about discrimination in schools. How can we teach children that these things are wrong when we're not talking about it at all? And then they see these incel videos on YouTube and it's something that they can't talk to anybody about or no one talks to them about. So they're just taking what the YouTube incels take them for fact.
A study from October 2021 showed there was a 6% chance of someone being suggested an incel video on YouTube within 5 steps of a non-related video. So it's like 6 Degrees of Matt Damon, but with being an incel. Are you a young male? Well, let me tell you, boy, you are 6 videos away from finding out that you're an incel.
I think that incel used to be kind of funny. Like, it used to be a joke. It used to be something people would be made fun of or would tease each other like, you're an incel. But I think due to all the extreme violence against women in the recent years that it's no longer a joke. Like, it's no longer even an insult.
Okay, so I have a question because this is something incels say that would solve it. Government-appointed girlfriends. Thoughts?
That's ridiculous. I would just like to remind everyone in the audience that women are not property. So the government cannot mandate women to have sex with you. That's something that you have to accomplish on your own.
Like 5 people just clicked off the video. They're like, that's the only thing I came here for. Never mind.
Believe me, there are women who also have not had sex. So
it's true. I read a story on Reddit the other day about this 25-year-old guy who said he lost his virginity to a female friend of his same age, and like they were both shocked when they found out each other were virgin. Maybe just go find the girls who are virgins. They don't call themselves incels, but you know.
I think the problem with gender in the U.S. has caused a huge rift between women and men. I think, like, we're taught that...
Well, this is in the UK, so, like, it's kind of a global thing.
Well, globally, like, we're taught, like,
gender.
Women, you are not supposed to be friends with boys. If you're the girl in a group of boys, it's because you're a slut. The reason they can't find a partner is because they don't know how. And the reason they don't know how is because they don't know how to be friends with people of the opposite sex, or to view them as
Human
their
beings.
peers,
Right.
like themselves.
Right.
And like there's some kind of separation in their mind, like women and men are different. And I don't think that's helpful at all. I think we're really the same. And I think it would just help if we kind of viewed each other as the same. Because you don't just find a partner. You have a friend first. They're your friend first 9 times out of 10, and then they become your partner.
1,500 teachers reported that they had experienced misogyny in school, and 59% of those said it was from a pupil. Others reported sexualized remarks about their appearance. Another responder said pupils had exposed themselves or made sexual noises or gestures during lessons. Ugh. What is wrong with teenage boys?
Disgusting. If you expose yourself, I'm sorry, you should just be expelled. I don't see why you wouldn't just be expelled at that point.
One said, I constantly hear sexist remarks from students. I see boys grab girls and say sexist comments. Ugh, what the hell? Girls are just used to it and brush it off. Terrible. Teachers also said some male pupils thought feminism was a desire to kill men. I'm sure they learned that from the quartering. One has been called a feminazi for broaching the subject. Another said a male student looked me dead in the eyes and asked if I'd ever been raped. Like, what the fuck? 19%, only 19% said they thought their school was doing good enough to tackle the misogyny, and 40% felt that it was going to be overlooked. Ms. Down's motion is calling for the government to make misogyny a hate crime and provide further mental health support for boys in schools. Yeah, I guess therapy, right? That's the answer, not government-mandated girlfriends.
I would say, like, if you get suspended or even expelled for being a misogynist, you should definitely have mandated therapy. Not mandated girlfriends, mandated therapy.
This is honestly a freaking huge trend, and young Americans are having less sex than ever before, and this is something that just increasingly gets worse. Sex frequency study finds surprising numbers. In a study of nearly 10,000 adults 18 to 44, the study found that from 2000 to 2002, the number of men ages 18 to 24 reporting no sex within the previous year was only 19%. But by 2016 and 2018, it had risen to 31. That's a 50% increase in incelery.
Yeah.
Between 2016 and 2018, 1 in 5 women reported being sexually inactive. From 2000 to 2002, 71% and 69% of married men and women, respectively, reported having sex weekly. That dropped to 58 and 61% of married men and women. How come the men were having more sex than the married women back in 2002, though? And why were the married women having more sex than married men in 2018, 2016? Sussy baka. Shouldn't it be the exact same percent?
No, because some marriages are same sex.
No. Oh, shit. So gay men used to have more sex back in the day, but now the lesbians
you
are killing.
cannot say that. That's not an actual
I'm just
fact.
fucking kidding. I'm trying to keep it light. And this can all be tied back to why we should eat the rich. That's right. We're bringing you that liberal ideology, guys. According to PhD Peter Ueda, it seems like in the US and elsewhere, it has become harder for a proportion of the population to establish themselves in society, in the labor market, and perhaps also in the dating market.
Yeah, I think that when you're struggling to find a place to live, like you can't afford to pay your bills or your rent, you're not going to be thinking about sex. It's not going to be the first thing on your mind. A lot of Americans and people all over have been struggling, and that was before the COVID pandemic. And after the COVID pandemic, that just became so much worse.
Here we can see Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and as you can see, your physiological needs of food, water, warmth, and rest are a little bit more important than belongingness and love needs. So yeah, when people are struggling with basic food and shelter and water and stuff and security and safety, not as interested in getting down and jiggy with it. Injecting our social democrat ideology into every situation.
There's also been studies showing that a lot more people are struggling with depression and anxiety, and most likely that also is tying into those factors of those basic needs not being met.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, there's been a 25% increase in the prevalence of anxiety and depression, and that's worldwide. And if you think this is just the UK, again, you are sadly mistaken, because the Secret Service themselves are reporting that there is a growing incel terrorism threat. I don't know, Katie, how do those government-mandated girlfriends sound now? No, I'm just kidding.
I also really think that if you're an incel and you commit a crime against women, how is that not a hate crime when your motivation is just to target that specific group? That's literally a hate crime, and the law should make it so.
True facts. Since 2014, attacks inspired by the incel movement spanning the US and Canada left dozens dead. The Secret Service is saying that the solution would be better behavioral threat assessment programs, meaning that in your workplace or college campuses, and even as far as state and local police, they could be monitoring people and keeping an eye out for behavior that leads to these kinds of violent incel attacks. Ironically, the term incel dates back to 1993 to a woman named Alana who built a text-only website called Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project. Now, that was just the namesake, but the actual ideology and like all that red pill crap that they have on 4chan, that came later. One of the most publicized and first incel terrorism events was in 2014 during the Isla Vista terror attack, where 22-year-old Elliot Rodger murdered 6 people before taking his own life. He had also released a YouTube video and manifesto justifying his actions as a way to punish women for rejecting him. 52 plus people have been killed in incel-driven terror attacks since then. Recently, Alec Manassan murdered 10 people in Toronto, Canada in a vehicular ramming attack. After posting on Facebook, the incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger. So Elliot Rodger is like incel Jesus.
Yeah, I guess so.
The UK does have something called a prevent strategy, which aims to reduce the threat of terrorism by intervening and stopping people from becoming radicalized. However, this has seen criticism, and particularly from Muslims, who disproportionately and often completely unfairly are targeted by this scheme. So, the government's more concerned with being racist against Muslims than stopping actual white male incel terrorists. There are some major barriers to breaking into the incel community because the incel community has traits that make it particularly impervious to intervention, including the high rate of serious mental health problems, as we touched on, and in the way that other forms of terrorism are caused by people feeling dejected from society or persecuted. You can't really cure mental health in the same way you can by like helping someone hold down a stable job or fixing their social life. Well, no, that's fucking stupid. I think you could. Anyway, There's an obvious problem, however. If incels become incels primarily or partly because they haven't had sex, it's not as if terrorism researchers can solve that for them. Right. There's no way to just, like, help someone have sex. They have to form a relationship with another human being, and they have to know how to do that to be able to overcome that.
And if they're in a bad place mentally to where they can't form those kind of relationships, they would have to get the mental health help they need first.
Touching back on that loneliness and lack of sex, nearly a quarter of all Americans, and that's the highest number ever recorded, reporting having no sex in the past year. And that was in 2018, before the pandemic. You can only imagine that that's gone up. Since the 90s, the proportion of high school students who are virgins rose from 45 to 60%. If you're in your early 20s, you're estimated to be 2.5 times more likely to be sexually inactive than Gen Xers. One factor is, again, an economic factor, and it's that today's young adults are less likely to be married and more likely to be living at home with their parents than previous cohorts. In the US, living with parents has become the most common domestic circumstance for peoples between the age of 18 and 34. But even beyond all that, some people believe that there are other factors at play, be that our environment or depression and drug use. Some people even think that it could be video games. and porn. I feel like video games and porn, it's like maybe the porn more than the video games. I don't know. One British economist, Norina Hertz, says that this is a symptom and cause of a wider loneliness epidemic. And she describes, quote, a world that's pulling apart in her book, The Lonely Century. Things contributing to this dystopian era include smartphones, the gig economy, the contactless economy. I don't know how contactless, maybe that's like when you were changing money between hands, that was enough social interaction for people. The growth of cities, the rise in single-person households, and the advent of the open office plan, the replacement of mom-and-pop stores with hyperchains, and hostile civic architecture. So because our buildings look hostile, we're not trying to smash. This is really interesting. Hertz says that one of the keys to changing this situation is understanding loneliness not only as a personal thing, but something that's personal, societal, economic, and, that's right, political. You can be lonely not just by feeling, quote, bereft of love, company, or intimacy, but also feeling unsupported and uncared for by our fellow citizens, our employers, our community, and our government. Some sociologists, though, believe that this is a happy, chosen condition. That's right. Some people believe the increase in the number of single-person households in the U.S. is really driven by affluence and by the greater economic independence of women. Maybe this indicates that women have growing agency in sexual matters. Stephanie Kuntz, a veteran historian of family, said the decline in sexual frequency probably reflects women's increased ability to say no and men's increased consideration for them. The article goes on, though, to say that in The Lonely Hunter, another woman, Amy Lutkin, a writer in her 30s, wrestles with how chosen her single life has been. It also describes the year in which she set out to break a 6-year spell of near celibacy by taking up exercise, losing weight, joining a dating site, etc. So clearly, it's not just men who are struggling with loneliness. To insist that any determined individual can overcome loneliness if she tries hard enough is to ignore the social conditions that make loneliness so common, Lutkin writes. In her case, there were strong economic reasons that she focused on work rather than on love. We're going to stop it there, but you can totally go ahead and read this article by The New Yorker, How Everyone Got So Lonely by Zoe Heller. It is a great article. I really don't know what the solution to this problem is. I don't know what the solution to society being so lonely is, but I do believe that conservatism is part of the problem. I'm sorry to get all political on you, but I totally believe that. As a society, we are very individualistic. We don't believe in community anymore. Technology has obviously played a big part in that. But I really don't think the solution is to just stop talking about gender in schools and not allow kids to engage with those ideas. If you can't talk to boys about gender, how can you talk to them about building a healthy social life? About dating? Because you might believe that the bill that was passed in Florida only applies to kids in preschool or like 3rd grade or something, but that's not the case whatsoever. In fact, it specifically says in the legislation that applies to any quote-unquote inappropriate conversations during any grade. And I truly believe that when you don't allow people to discuss who they are, you're hampering their ability to make connections. When you allow people who are billionaires and trillionaires to just keep hoarding wealth and you don't tax them and take some of that wealth and reinvest it into our world, which has become filled with a homelessness epidemic, which has become economically unlivable for so many people, well, it's really no wonder that we're all so alone and depressed. I don't think the excuse of boys will be boys is going to cut it anymore, and this locker room talk, it's just wrong. You cannot ask your teacher if she's ever been raped. And maybe if conservative parents were willing to talk to their children about gender and how to treat people of the opposite gender, there wouldn't be so many goddamn incels. This has been a news update by Higher Level Gaming. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving us a like or subscribing to find out whenever we post. You can also let us know in the comments what you think about this issue. But above all else, don't forget to have a nice day And please, go have sex.